next one, I'm gonna get this one. Let's move on to our fourth one. All right, so this one, I'm gonna teach you just going straight down. And this is another one where you have to be careful, because if you have a round space you're trying to fit this into, or you're just trying to squeeze it into this square, you have to be able to imagine that it continues on. I'll explain in a minute. All right, so we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, and 4. We want to try and evenly spread these out. So we're going to do 4 down, and we're going to do 4 across. We're going to basically, there's a game out there that has to do with dots, and I don't remember exactly what it's called or even what the point of it is, but it kind of starts off like that. So now we're just going to continue. So we've got 4 down, 4 across, and I'm going to try and make these, and don't rush it, just kind of, I'm looking at these 3 before I put my 4th one down. My eyes are always looking around. So I'm going to make sure that I'm looking before I commit. Okay, so it looks pretty even. But again, like I said in the beginning, maybe there'd be another one here, and then we'd have to imagine there's another one here. It wouldn't just stop here. Again, up here, maybe there'd be another dot up here. We'd have to act like there's more going on off this page, okay? So the next step here, what we want to do is we're going to go from 1 dot, we're going to kind of bow out, kind of like a bow, you know, bow and arrow, and we're going to jump, act like you're jumping. Don't make them out too far, and don't make them too straight, because you're going to have to do this. I'm going to bow out the other way, almost like you're making some sort of a chain, right? And I'm going to do that all the way down on each row or column. Again, you don't want it to bow out too much. You don't want it to be too thin. This one bowed too much. This one came in too far. It's okay. Hopefully it will hide itself. So it looks like we've got like 4 chains now. Turn our paper, and we're going to do the same thing. So from, these are still dots. I'm gonna bow out, bow the other way. Bow out, bow the other way. Well, I'm still focusing on just the dots. I don't care about the other lines. Just want to hit my dots. Okay. I'm going to take it back. The next part, we're still focusing on the dots, but we got to be careful. So I'm going to turn it at an angle. I'm going to aim from this dot and go to this dot. Okay, see that? Try not to cross over my other lines. Well, don't jump ahead if you finish this before I do, because the next part is going to be crucial to the design. And if you just continue doing this without paying attention the other way, it's not going to look right. Okay. All right, so now we're going to turn it this way. here's where we're gonna add a little bit of depth. So from here, I'm gonna go down as if I'm going to this one and space it out. So I want it to be behind. Stop, pick it up, space it up, or drop it in. So you have to be careful on this one that you know roughly what your path is. And then we're not done, because there are a couple different things you can do with this, like many of the other things that you can do to make this look a little more dynamic. First thing we can do is we could shade these in or fill these in. It'll help make it pop a little more when you have the contrast. Contrast being the difference between white and black. It makes for a better image. So if I've got my dark darks and I've got my light lights right next to each other, we're going to have more contrast and act as a more dynamic image. The other part that we can do to this is we can do a little bit of shading on the lines themselves. So I could tic-tac-toe type thing where I could do this one black, leave this one white, and then do this one black. I can make them all black behind there. There's nothing wrong with that. This is sort of yours. I taught you the method to create this one. Now you get a little bit of that artistic freedom and choose how you want to fill in your design. Leaving it blank for my students is not an option. They have to do something to it. But if you're doing this at home, you've got a little more artistic freedom, because I'm not grading yours. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there, but you get the point on what you could be doing. And then the other part, the shading. So I'm going to shade on a light one so that way you can see kind of what I'm trying to achieve here. So I'm going to shade kind of darker for the underneath one and then lighten up. All right, and then go darker and then lighten up. And then maybe this one, I want to go dark on the edges and then lighten up in the middle. Kind of have a stripe down the middle a little bit. All right. I can do the same to these all the way around. I think it definitely helps with adding some depth to the image to add some value. I could just shade one side of the top one and have it kind of roll over. But under here, I still want to, if you add value underneath this top one, and it's gonna look more like it's on top because it's casting a shadow underneath. Okay, so you can do that to all of them, every other one, but you've got to do something different to make it look a little more unique. One more, I will do one more here. Let's say this one. So I could go dark on the outer edges and get lighter, and go dark and get lighter. And go from there, and then same thing underneath here. So I'd want to make sure I have that shadow underneath, but I could still go dark from the edges and go towards the middle, leaving a little bit of a highlight. And this one is called the Fife. Okay, so make sure you label that. All right, so this one's one of my favorites. It's got a really neat look at the end of it. It can get a little tricky, so you gotta make sure you pay attention. All right, so this one, we're gonna make an S, and we're gonna stack that S with more S's. What we have to do, the hardest part about this, is just making sure your S's are the same size. Even when you're going off the page, off your line, you gotta act like you don't wanna try and squeeze it in just because you're running out of room. You wanna make it look like it's being cut off. And that's a problem for a lot of my students, is they tend to wanna squeeze things in because they're running out of room. And I need you to think off the page, okay? So I'm just gonna do 4 S's on top of each other, so make sure you make them a decent size. Don't try and make them too small. It'll get too difficult for you to understand and try to put things where you need to put it. So we're gonna leave a little bit of space, not too much. And I'm gonna try and make the same size S's again, stacking them. And just so you know, what I'm doing is I'm looking over here and looking over here, bouncing back and forth every time I make this line to make sure that I'm as close as possible to the size. I'm not just looking at what I'm currently doing. I'm looking at what I did before. My eyes are jumping back and forth. You can't see my eyes doing that. Okay, I missed my mark there, but that's okay. I don't want you to rush right to the eraser. I know you're learning this, but don't rush right to the eraser. It's not that big a deal. Because when you're working with the pen, when we finally get into the pen, there's no erasing. There's no going back. So I need you to try and have some confidence and just keep going. Like I said before, a lot of your mistakes will be hidden in the confusion of the pattern. Okay, so once you're done with it, people are gonna look at it and say, oh, that's awesome. And you're gonna be like, oh, I see a mistake here, I see a mistake here, and that's okay. But just don't point it out to them. Okay, so I got 4 rows of S's, 4 columns of S's. And what we're gonna do here is gonna depend on how far away we are and how big the openings are. So I'm gonna turn my paper slightly. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a line from the opening of this S over to the opening of this S. So I did 3 lines, and I'm gonna do 1 more line, and that's it. So I got 4 lines. Sometimes you can only get 3. But try not to go more than 4. It all depends on your spacing. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then jump to the next row. It doesn't matter if you cut through some of the S a little bit, it's not that big a deal. Our biggest task here is just getting the same amount of lines in the same direction. Okay. So the lines we need to make now, we're going to do those same 4 lines, but we're going to do them coming from out here to the middle. 4. Okay, so from the right where the S's meet here, you want to come out and aim for the middle. And we're going to do that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so 2, 3, 4. Okay, so as you notice, we're pretty much done with what we have, but if we had more S's going on, we would have to continue these lines, and it looks kind of unfinished because we have so much open space, right? That's okay for this. Now, if I told you that we needed to fill the space, then you need to make more S's, and again, you're gonna end up going off the page, and that's okay. You have to make it look like you're cutting it off, even though it continues forever, okay? Because what I keep wanting to see is more lines going this way and continuing, but we can't worry about that right now. The other part of what we can do with this is fill in the background. There's 2 other things that we can do, and one is filling in the background behind these little lines. So between where we filled this up, we're going to try and create that contrast again. And to me, it kind of looks like a zipper or a bunch of zippers, or it looks like shoelaces. And you can think whatever you want to think when you see these things. And when I tell you the name of this, some of you may understand it, some of you might not, but it's okay. We don't have to agree with it. I like the way the contrast, it really helps bring the image together when you can put the light and the dark together. Balance, as the Jedi would say. Again, try not to focus on the outside of this, try and focus on the inside of what's happening here, because we didn't complete this all the way out. The only other thing left to do with this one is shade these bottom ones. Like, get a little bit of value underneath these so it looks like it's underneath. And having a super sharp pencil is not good for that. And what you're gonna end up doing is you're gonna be doing this black with pen when you do your final, but you'll have the opportunity to shade with the pencil. So like this one as well. So that black will be pen, but the shading will be pencil. That's the only time you get to use pencil, is when we're shading. Okay? This one is called the Pinochle. All right, let's try and get one more in on this page. Well, we have no choice, we can only go one more. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cross all the way, but I'm gonna try and make the lines, you can make them straight, you can make them curved. It's up to you. It usually depends on what kind of space you're putting it in. Since this is a square and these are straight lines, I could keep it straight, no big deal. I tend to curve mine a little bit, which is fine. Kind of adds to it a little bit, but you can keep it straight if you like. But what we need is we need to have 3 lines that are pretty close to each other. Okay, so I got 3 lines that way. And then what I'm going to do is 3 lines the opposite direction, but I'm going to stop and go underneath. So I'm going to do the same thing. I've got 1, 2, 3 lines going this way. I'm going to do 3 lines going this way. Try and keep them as close to each other as possible. I'm going to keep them parallel. The biggest thing is we want this to go underneath the first set of lines that we made. Okay. And then from here, now what we're going to do is we're going to take another set of lines right down the middle. And again, we're stopping when we hit the other pencil marks. Just got to look at your pencil marks like brick walls. You can't go through them. Just need to go up to them. So we've got an X and we've got the start of another X if we turn it this way, or T, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go into the middle here, come out, and again, I'm always doing 3 lines, at least in the beginning, 3 lines. Okay, so since I went all the way around, what I'm going to do is start back at the beginning line, and I'm going to go parallel to that beginning line. So I'm going right alongside this one. I'm going to go 1, stop, 2, stop, 3, stop. Right along the other side, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then come down here as if I was continuing them. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're starting to see kind of a weave look. This next one is really gonna start to put it together. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I did my first cross, or X, and I'm gonna go to what my third one was, my first 2. So this was my first one, my second one, this was my third one. So I'm gonna do this here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then flip it and do the same thing on this one. So again, we just went in order of how we started, and that's just how we're continuing it. And I'm gonna go back to the beginning again. So once I've gone all the way around 2 times, now I'm going back to the beginning. I'm gonna do the same thing again until I run out of room. 3, so now I'm out of room. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm not trying to squeeze it in. And this one I'm just gonna add another one. Actually I won't, I'm not gonna add another one. So that's that one. Go to this one. Okay, and so I have 3 little spots here. What I'm gonna do is just fill those in with what should be there. And there, and do one here, and it's done. So it looks kind of like, to me, like kind of a zoom in of a ball of yarn that's been tangled. This one is called the Hurry. Also kind of looks like it could be a bunch of roads and highways, bridges, things like that. So this one I'm just going to label underneath as the Hurry. All right, so we got 6 down. 6 down, we'll do a few more, but I'm gonna prep my paper and get my paper ready for some more 3.5 by 3.5 inch squares.